Today, I'm joined by Nikki Barua, co-founder with Monica Marquez of Flipwork, a company that turns large organizations into agentic enterprise where people and AI collaborate to unlock human capability and operational agility. Both Nikki and Monica receive plaudits for their roles as leaders, influential thinkers, and powerful entrepreneurs. Once on the inside of companies like Ernst & Young, JLL, Google, and many more, their mission today is to humanize AI and transform work, at once helping leaders and teams to build the mindsets and skills needed to thrive in the AI era. You set yourself a big task there. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, really, really appreciate it. And I'm sorry Monica can't join us, but I completely understand. And obviously send all of our best. But I did want to start by asking a relatively personal question at the beginning, and just to understand what brought the two of you together to form and to found Flipworks. There's a very aspirational and engaging ambition. And I wonder, what was it that think, right, we're going to take this on?
Andrew, it felt like everything we'd ever done in our lives brought us to this moment. We were meeting the moment at exactly the right time. We both came from completely different backgrounds and experiences, but collectively, it's exactly what was necessary to achieve Flipworks' mission. The through line of my career has been helping large enterprises transform with technology. That, whether it was every phase of tech disruption, I've focused on helping some of the world's largest companies adapt to change and help them become more digital, adopt those new technologies and really scale and grow faster. And so throughout that career, one of the most common themes that I saw, no matter which technology implementation was going on, is that the technology would race ahead and the humans would get left behind. And it's not an uncommon phenomenon. It takes some time for people to catch up to gaining that fluency and building those capabilities. But in past decades, that gap was not as wide as what we're facing today. That was the difference. You had the luxury of time to figure it out, and you could adapt to change management. Used to take a different approach, and you had 18 to 24 months to get people along. And that's not the case with AI. AI capabilities are changing every week. You wake up and Claude has another new model upgrade, and it's taking away more and more tasks out of people's jobs. So seeing that gap getting wider and seeing that the people transformation part was so critical. That's not a technical problem. That's a human capability and adaptation problem. And there weren't any solutions that were truly addressing that in a way that would amplify humanity as opposed to replace it. And that's the challenge that both Monica and I are deeply passionate about. It's something that is our life purpose. And given my tech background and her background in enterprise, people transformation, and seeing how, what it takes to bring people along, it was the perfect combination of skills and experiences and perspective that we were able to bring to solve this challenge.
What have been the biggest surprises on the journey so far?
The number one surprise for us, and this is so different from our original hypothesis. Our original hypothesis was we thought it would be a skills training challenge that we're solving, getting people comfortable around a very intelligent technology that you're not just learning, but you're actually teaching it. So how what you put in actually influences what you get out of it. So we thought it would be how fast can people learn, that it's really about speeding up that process. That's the real challenge we're solving. What we discovered in reality after working with thousands of people was that it's something completely different. The real issue is an identity challenge. It's not a skills problem. And what that means is so much of what it takes to truly collaborate with AI is having to unlearn the old way and shed old mindsets and behaviors, including old identities. When people are successful in what they're doing, and this is particularly true in white collar professions, which are being massively disrupted by AI, you build your sense of self and your worth and your value and even the status and power that you've achieved are all attached to a level of expertise that you have. You take pride in that. I'm the best at this. I'm very good at that. This is how I've done all of these things for 20 years, and that's why I've achieved this seniority and this position. When that gets threatened, and effectively, it doesn't matter how great you are at what you do, you have to become a rookie and adopt a day one mindset and let go of the old playbook and unlearn all the things you knew how to do and actually shed significant parts of your job and let AI do that. It's a very unsettling feeling. And what it really takes is for someone to say, well, who am I really in context of AI? Not just who am I in general, but who am I really in context of AI? What is it that is my unique zone of genius that doesn't get replaced? That is the true sense of value. And how do I now co evolve with this machine where it's me and the machine together that are exponentially more capable? What does that look like? And when people are able to do that, that's when people become people squared. That's what amplifies them. But it's the process of getting there is not an easy one, and that's why we're so proud of the impact we're able to create, because we take people through these 90-day sprints during which time they're able to rewire their mindset, not just build the AI skills. And it's been a really effective and pretty rapid transformation process, because you're talking about 90 days of a complete shift in behavior and mindset. And part of the reason it works is because we create that safe space, is because we provide that the room to experiment and a way to rebuild a new identity for the agentic era. And so it's not just shedding the old one, but again, figuring out who are you in this new era.
And it's a massive shift, isn't it? So if I've been in work for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, I haven't necessarily spent a whole lot of, if any, time thinking about what is my unique proposition. What am I bringing that's different from everybody else? I've just spent my time doing, really. So almost it's it almost feels like quite an emotional experience to go through. Really, you're sort of therapeutically uncovering the essence of who you are and what you do.
It really
Do you
is.
find
It's sort of this.
are people very challenged by what they discovered? Do you think?
It is, and sometimes it's filled with delight, where they're excited about discovering something that they hadn't quite named before. It's always been
Yeah,
there, but they hadn't recognized that as the real value. But it's also times have changed. That didn't have to be the most valuable part of what you brought before when you were
yeah,
doing 20 other things, right? It gets buried in there. But when out of those 20 things, AI can do 19 of them, you better know exactly what it is that sets you apart. So take a role that is massively disrupted by AI, administrative assistants, for example, right? Executive assistants or admin assistants. Most of the work that someone in that position does, AI can do faster, better, cheaper, and higher quality, no question, right? Whether it's managing your email inbox, whether it's setting up calendar meetings, whether it's getting bookings done, all those kind of things, it's so fast and easy to do. So the question is, if you are in that role, then what sets you apart when AI can do your job? Well, maybe it's your ability to deeply understand the executives you serve, that you have their trust, you have the wisdom to know when something is the right decision, because you have the context, the human context that the machine will not have. Perhaps it is your ability to empathize in a situation where something needs to be done and it's not a mechanical prompt, right? It's all of those qualities when you extract that to say, well, I'm still valuable, because yes, the machine can do 90% of that, but that just means I can now reallocate that freed up time to do more of the human things.
yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because as an executive, I've probably been paying you, keeping you on board for the 20% that you've been doing. Whereas now, actually, you can now spend 100% of your time doing that 20%. which is wonderful. Whereas before, I've only really been paying you for the contribution you've made sort of 2 hours a day because you've had all this other nonsense to do with. But AI can do that for you, and that's where I think we're getting to. And there's a report the last few weeks. There's a report every week at the moment, but it's talking about the difference between AI's impact on tasks versus AI inputs on roles. A lot of people fear that AI is taking our roles, whereas what AI is doing in the main is providing the ability to execute tasks that free up people to expand their role more fully.
Yeah, and those tasks, I think most white collar jobs are have a high degree of exposure to AI impacting those tasks. The roles that are really at risk is where 80% plus of those tasks can be replaced by AI, which is very different from a 20 to 30% of a task impacted. And the challenge for all of us to think about is how do we elevate ourselves to higher value work that continues to be relevant and valuable and irreplaceable. And I believe, I'm an optimist, so I actually believe that this will help us achieve more, not less. It makes us, it moves us out of that industrial age thinking of human doings and just being in boxes doing mechanical tasks and all the drudgery, and actually frees us from the drudgery to do the things that are intellectual and creative and relational.
That becomes then very much a business decision. And I was going to watch this later, but you've given me the perfect segue. So my background is in commercial real estate, and I think anyone we talked about it when we chatted a little while ago that lots of the big companies, JLL, Cushman, CBRE, they saw their share price drop by 20% plus.
Right.
In the last few. It hasn't. It's gone up a little bit. It hasn't fully recovered at all. Because of comments made about AI's efficiency to do lots of real estate tasks, and I have a theory that you can shoot down or you can agree with. That I think a lot of CR companies are very much focused on AI efficiency, so doing the same with less, as opposed to AI opportunity, doing the same, doing more with more. And I think that's a challenge. So on one hand, yes, it can free up people to do more things, do whatever, but only if the business decides that's what it wants to do. If a business decides, as some of the real estate players have said, we can cut our research capacity by headcount by 25%. So therefore, they're going to be doing the same, but with less resource. So it's more cost effective, but it's not really grasping the opportunity or growing. Does that? I was really interested. I was really, when I read that, I thought I really got to ask.
I actually, follow that quite closely. I have a lot of friends in CRE and in leadership roles, and so it's an industry pretty familiar. I think the stock market crash for commercial real estate really was about two very different vectors that were impacting it. One was that as more and more industries shrink in terms of headcount, because AI is providing the capacity formerly provided by humans, you're going to need less real estate. Each of those clients are going to need less real estate for office space because you don't need all of the desk space and the bathrooms and all of that stuff, right? So the actual demand shrinks from the market over time. So that was certainly one key criteria. The second piece was also with software and tech companies being a significant sort of segment of the commercial real estate industry. That's hugely impacted. You've seen SaaS market and stocks drop like crazy, and that's a market that, again, headcount reduction, but also a lot of companies potentially at risk of failing, which means some of those contracts are at risk. And then finally, the efficiency gains within CRE firms themselves, where the back office efficiencies will transform what the industry looks like. So I think that's an example of an industry that is facing disruption on multiple ends: the market it serves, its own business, and the long-term outlook of risk in terms of the lending contracts and so forth.
It's really interesting because I think one of the challenges that they have is that they can't, or well, certainly they haven't come out and said we expect office occupancy demand to be challenged the next few years. All of them some of the big five, all of them are saying that they expect office demand growth in the next 5 years. But it is a 100%, as you say, it is a challenge that people are going to need less space. You can say, yeah, office intention will change. It'll be, rather than people coming together, it'll be a decision hub or this. But ultimately, people are going to need less
Look at
space.
what happened after COVID, right? Remote work really took hold. And yes, there is no question that when people gather together, there's the creative collision that happens of groups of people together, does not replace just interacting over Zoom. But with that said, now with AI even providing more capabilities, that it doesn't matter where someone is located, you're actually able to really interact and create value in a lot of different ways. So that is bound to have even more of a compounding effect on the need for office space.
Yeah, definitely. Just back to AI in general. So, and you mentioned this at the beginning. So every time I look at the news, listen to a podcast, I hear about a new Claude release. I hear about Agentic AI. I read last week that Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, was saying that OpenClaw is now the new ChatGPT and announcing NemoClaw. And this is probably the hardest question that you've got to answer, I guess. But where are we with AI? Is it overblown at the moment, or is it understated?
I think it's understated, actually. I believe we're the early stages of a massive tsunami, and the speed will gather more intensity, very quickly. And we're seeing that happen where, if you look at model capability growth over time, it is near vertical. Whereas you compare that to other technologies that have taken, that have had hockey stick growth, but nothing like this. And so when you think about the compounding effect of AI not only getting smarter day after day, but it is now able to build itself. You don't even need people to code AI when it's actually building itself. And so now you have this exponential growth factor that happens. And that, along with the fact that more and more people are adopting it, and yet we've barely covered the usage worldwide. There's still a lot of room to go. So now think about the number of use cases that will naturally emerge as more people adopt it, as the models get smarter and smarter, and then all of the other solutions that are built on top of those models. So you're going to start to see the application, its usage, and its value grow exponentially over time, where we don't think twice about the internet anymore. We just take it for granted, right? We don't question it. To me, AI is going to be like that. It's just like electricity. Everyone's going to have it. It's just infrastructure. And when you think of it in context of, imagine if it were like electricity. When the light bulb was invented, we didn't think it would have many more uses beyond that. And today, everything runs on it, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same idea. If it becomes infrastructure of that kind, we can't in this moment envision the many, many uses of it yet. It'll only unfold as more things, come into play. So I do think it's really early stages. Now, does that mean all of the hype and doom and gloom is, necessarily imminent? Are all the jobs going away in 18 months? Are the robot overlords, going to be running our society? I think there's a lot of overblown hype around that, but not around the capabilities itself.
And I can't remember who it was, but as either the head of IBM or HP said, I think in the 70s, there's probably a market worldwide for 5 computers.
Yeah.
And you look at, we've pretty much changed that. I mean, you imagine you go into the office now and somebody says, "Oh, the internet's down." Everybody just sits there.
Yeah.
Literally nobody knows what to do.
Yeah.
And it's
it was like a phone, right? You could leave your home without your wallet, but you would never leave your home without your phone.
No.
Right? It's the same thing. Like we every new technology at first, it feels overhyped. Like we're making too big of a deal. And before we know it, it becomes another appendage that we can live without. So humans are very good at adapting to new things and finding new ways to leverage it. So that's why I'm very optimistic that this is actually one of the greatest things that we have ever had as capability to solve humanity's greatest challenges. Imagine being able to cure cancer, being able to solve challenges with education or healthcare, and other, or just having more abundance and prosperity because we finally detached labor from income.
I love that. But then that brings about another question, I guess, is that a lot of companies, CEOs, CIOs, whatever, are challenged by their board, by the shareholders, by the analysts. Right, you've got to bring in AI. You've got to get AI,
Mhm.
and I do think there's still that gap between bringing in AI and knowing what you're trying to achieve. It almost feels like the knowing what you're trying to achieve should come first,
Mhm.
and then you work out, well, how do we bring in AI to support the execution of this? At the moment, it feels like a lot of people are investing heavily in AI without necessarily having a clear business proposition or aim. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we do see a lot of that. I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on executives to
Yeah.
adopt AI and to
Mhm.
um, do something with it. And there's always a shiny object syndrome when something that powerful that dominates the media news cycle 24/7. You're bound to
Mhm.
react to it by getting the first shiny object tool you can find. But you're right. I mean, in the absence of clarity on what is your business objective you're trying to achieve, think of this as the tool that helps you do it better, faster, cheaper, not necessarily make the tool the goal. So if you're trying to achieve, greater market share, in what ways can this help you reach more people without adding headcount? If you're trying to gain efficiencies, how can this help you increase your operating profit without making changes? So all of those things are now possible in ways that it wasn't before, but you have to
Mm.
be clear what is your business priority and what's the highest value use case where you want to apply it. And when you do that, the results we're seeing like 8 to 10x ROI within 90 days. It's insane, the results that we've been able to see, in 30 to 40% freed up capacity within that time. So the
Mm.
results are really powerful, but you have to know what goal you're trying to achieve first.
Mm. And how to, I guess, communicate and not terrify the people that work in the business.
Yes, I think that is, it's creates an unhealthy environment when people are operating in fear of losing their job any day. And the headlines, certainly in the U.S., there's not a week that goes by where another major company is shedding 20% of its workforce or thousands
Yeah.
of jobs getting cut, and actually saying it's because of AI. Either because AI optimized it, or they want to shift the funds away from headcount into AI investment. Um, I think we'll continue to see that for another 2 to 3 years,
Mhm.
because when any new disruption happens, there is a dip where you're adjusting to that. All the resources are getting sort of shuffled, if you will, from what it used to be about to where you want to now invest in the future. And
Mm.
during that period, you're going to see experience short-term pain of jobs that are cut, or a direction that has changed. All of that is bound to happen. But I do feel like if you take a really long-term outlook, we'll see a much greater impact that AI has had on our lives and the quality of our work.
Mm. I think for a lot of people that aren't necessarily don't follow it quite so closely, that they still think of AI as being ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. Maybe if they've heard of Claude, then that'll be as far as they go. But there's a big difference between LLM and agents, and I wonder if you could just explain a little bit about how businesses transform into, in your words, think agentic enterprises. How
Mhm.
do agents come to play, and what's the distinction between an agent and
Mhm.
a standard ChatGPT dashboard you might operate?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest way to think about, your typical LLM like ChatGPT or Claude is that you have to prompt it. You have to give it instructions, and then it
Yeah.
responds to your instructions. Agents work autonomously. You don't need instructions. Once you've designed the agent and you've given it a role, and that role includes a set of tasks, it just autonomously keeps doing that, and producing that output. So the difference is a young child that you need to instruct in order to go, clean your room or do something, and then it does it, versus a grown adult who operates on their own. So every agent you have is like adding a headcount. It's an entire worker that does a certain function, and that's one of the biggest differences I've seen when people think about AI adoption. And you ask them, well, are you using AI? For most people in the workplace today, the answer is yes. Yeah, I love using AI. But what that really means is I chat with my chatbot. I enjoy prompting, and
Yeah.
I like, yeah, it's been able to like reduce a lot of my workload and all of those things. What they haven't advanced to, for the most part, is building not just using agents, but building a team of agents, having entire workflows redesigned, and having agents do that. When you get to that level of sophistication, the output and the outcomes are entirely different. The difference between two people, where one is just using prompting and ChatGPT, versus someone who's operating with a team of 50 agents, it's completely different outcomes that they're able to achieve. And that's the evolution that we're starting to see happen now, where companies are not only building custom agents, and managers are having to manage hybrid teams of humans plus agents, which then brings about entirely different ways of thinking about not just roles and accountability and job design, but also guardrails and governance. How do you? It's the same things as you would do as hiring a new person, and how do you get them to gain clarity on what their job is? How do you hold them accountable? How do you improve their performance? You do the same exact things with agents, and that's what the future is going to be about.
One of the challenges, I guess, and this is brought fairly into common parlance the last sort of month or so with OpenClaw, and the challenge is that in the old days, a company would buy SAP or would buy Salesforce, whatever. You bring in it, implement it, and you would use it. That would be it. As an employee, I'm not going to then go and create my own version of it. Why would I do that? But I found I installed OpenClaw. I got like everybody else did. Got a Mac Mini and sort of ring fenced it and did it that, and it was amazing. And I'm not a tech person really, but literally within a very short period of time, it was running research for me. It was doing this. It was many things it was doing standalone. So that somebody that was ex commercial real estate, ex corporate. Bloody hell, that's terrifying. Somebody quite bright or not bright, like me, can come in, create their own agent. It can do this, and I can sort of just sit there really. And it's doing all this stuff. But what people don't necessarily realize is that if you read the terms and conditions in a lot of detail, what's happening with your data? Because I'm whacking OpenClaw into my system, and that's sucking in data from here, there, and everywhere. And it might produce the perfect output for you, but it's how do our businesses even aware of what OpenClaw, what agents, all those things that I can develop can do and can access? And are they?
It is a huge concern to organizations, right? Because cybersecurity and privacy and all kinds of things at risk, which is why it's so important for governance and guardrails to be designed before all of these things are deployed. And that often doesn't happen if the leaders are hesitating to figure out what the AI strategy is. Because in reality, even if you don't communicate what the plan is, and you don't have the right security guardrails around it, someone out there on your team who's curious and willing to experiment is out there already building something. I mean, that's why the challenge of shadow AI is growing, where people are building things and no one's telling them, hey, here's a risk that if you do this, it exposes our firm's data. So that's why it's important to actually be proactive and be ahead of the curve, and like setting these, setting the right plan and the right strategy and the right infrastructure in place.
Yeah, I think that's it's a big thing. Probably more than any other time I could think of during my career. It's more important than ever to communicate and to let people know that yes, we are developing this, we are going to do this, this is happening, this is coming in, this is what's going to happen, this is what you can do, can't do, etc., etc. And that's why, and I'm still not quite sure the answer to this one, but like most big IT software hardware projects naturally live with the IT team, live with the CTO, the CIO, or whatever. And yes, it's signed off by finance, the MD,
Yeah.
of course it is, but that doesn't feel like that doesn't feel like the only home for AI.
Mhm.
So if I'm bringing in AI agents and I'm trying to create an agentic approach
Mhm.
to work, where should ownership, direction of AI live? Is it a
Um,
committee? I hate that word, but is it where does it sit? It shouldn't necessarily sit just with the IT team,
yeah.
or should it?
I think, well, I don't believe the right home is IT. In fact, I feel like that is the one wrong home for it because, yes, it can, the IT department can certainly, understand the technology and the security and all of those things, but that's not the real challenge in the workplace. The real challenge in the workplace is having clarity on exactly where you plan to deploy AI, or agents, and what parts of your business does it give you that competitive edge, because
Mm,
that's a strategic decision. Traditional moats are eroding faster than we can keep track of. Look at what happened with the software industry. They built up a moat for decades of 80% gross margin businesses that evaporated when entire companies could be replaced by one cloud model update.
yeah.
And so you have to think about, well, what's your new moat, and how do you build that competitive advantage? What is the agility in your culture that you need to build? All of those things are strategic questions. And so I personally feel strongly that, yes, it's either a cross-functional team of executives leading this, but if there was one role that I feel strongly about, it's the chief operating officer, because it goes horizontally across every function. It's not just
Mm,
focused on back office. It's really thinking about operationalizing the strategy of the company. And so look at AI as that. As you think about how to make your business more agentic, look at that as a strategic lever and the ways in which you want to deploy that. And then, most importantly, how do you bring your people and culture along to do that? And that's not going to happen out of the IT department.
no, definitely not. Yeah, it's just feels very different from lots of other
Yeah. Yeah,
solutions.
it's different from previous, like you remember, like cloud, right? Like when everything
Yeah,
moved
yeah,
to the cloud, right? I mean, that was definitely an IT initiative,
yeah.
doing that. But cloud didn't necessarily change, how people thought about, it didn't impact humans and culture as much. Yes, it was a different way of accessing your data or your files, but to the common user within that company, the everyday employee, it's a matter of whether you click this thing or you click that thing. It didn't require
Yeah.
them to rewire their mindset and like shift their behavior or be at risk of losing their jobs. The
Mm.
implications are totally different now.
They are, and going back to real estate, it's a space that we both understand. Is the one of the big no, I've used the word challenge too much. One of the big questions, I guess, is that the way each team uses AI is
Hmm.
different. Whereas with cloud, it's the way you use it is fairly
Yeah,
standard how you use it. Whereas with the way that marketing, production, asset management, consulting, procurement, the way they're using AI is different.
yeah.
And so does that require those people to be trained how to use AI, or is it because you can't train for every single use case? So how do you ensure that each team is optimizing
Hmm.
the use of AI, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think what your question is really getting at is, how do you even identify the real needs based on different teams and functions, and
Yeah.
more importantly, different individuals?
Right.
Because there's no one size fits all solution to this. People, you have to meet them where they are, but how do you even know where they are? And one of the things that we've developed at Flipwork that is so incredibly powerful is a proprietary diagnostic. It's called Flip Factor, and effectively, it measures the AI readiness of every single individual within a company. So even if the company has 150,000 employees, you can see, you get a personalized report for each employee to know where they are against everybody else, where they're benchmarking against their peers within the company, but also globally. And it helps to identify, where are their greatest needs. Is it their workflow that's a challenge? Is it their technical skills? Is it their mindset? All of those things. There's a variety of factors that get evaluated. And so every single individual now knows where they stand, not only where they are, but where they need to be, and exactly how to go from point A to point B. You can also see that view at the team level. So you can aggregate that. So we provide reporting that can be aggregated at by region, by different functions, by different career stage, any kind of cross sections, and even at a team leader level. So every team leader can see, if they have a 30-person team, what does that breakdown look like for everyone on my team? Who's sort of racing ahead and likely to break something, and I need to make sure that there's guardrails because this person is a pioneer, versus someone who's a guardian who's waiting for permission. And unless they know that it's safe for them to try, they're probably not going to adopt AI. So it helps you figure out, you as a leader, what do you need to do to bring your team along and make everyone agentic? And at the enterprise level, imagine getting that view across 150,000 employees and knowing exactly where the best opportunities are, where the biggest risks are, and what's actually holding back the company. So that diagnostic is what we start every client engagement with, because it provides this clear map of exactly where the baseline is. And then as we do the 90-day sprints, we keep measuring using that diagnostic. And the goal is, think of it like a quadrant. We basically get everyone to the top right quadrant, which is, makes them orchestrators of agents and, makes them truly AI ready.
How on earth did you even start developing that stuff? That sounds amazing. And I remember looking at the sort of charts and things on your website and things, and think, well, how on earth did they even come up with that?
Well, this is after decades of working and seeing the same challenges. But this
That's the
is
late
something that
90s.
was developed along with academic experts and scientists. So it's one of the most rigorous diagnostics out there, and really the most revealing. That to me, what it does, yes, it's powerful at the enterprise level, certainly, and it ensures that companies are investing in the right places where AI turns into ROI, right? But for an individual, the most powerful thing is it's empowering. Rather than feeling or questioning, where am I in this AI spectrum? Am I at risk? What do if I'm behind, what do I even do to get ahead? I wish
Mm-hmm.
I knew. And if I reveal my fears or my insecurities to my boss, what if I'm a target for the next layoff?
Yeah.
So people are dealing with all of that in isolation. And what this diagnostic does is it gives them a true understanding of where they are, but it also guides them on exactly what they need to do for their own growth. Regardless of whether the company is investing and providing the resources, it gives them a clear pathway. And what we've done now is combine that with an AI coach that then helps them go exactly from where they are to where they want to be in a step-by-step way. So now they're not just looking at a static report that says, hey, Andrew, here are the 10 things you need to do to improve your agentic skills. But the AI coach then takes you step by step through each of those things and says, here's how you build this skill, or here's what you need to do differently, here's what you need to unlearn. And it can work within your own workflow and your particular skill set.
So clever.
Yeah, we're very excited about having
Mm.
solutions that are not just helping organizations gain that productivity and competitive edge, but more importantly, helping to bring people along in ways that are um, truly, makes them feel safe, makes them feel seen, makes them feel understood. and makes them believe that they can.
And presumably you can use that as part of the recruitment process. So when somebody's coming on board, almost before you make the decision
Yeah,
where they benchmark on the AI capacity, capability, willingness to expand, etc. So yeah.
exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And for the first time, we're actually making that available publicly beyond our enterprise clients, because we had, for the past year, kept it limited to only our enterprise clients as part of our large engagements. And, we started to see so many people really wanting to know that, but their employers are not our clients. And for the first time, we're actually making that available publicly. And I'll be happy to share the link with, as in the show notes for this as well.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So at some stage, will you allow or create sort of anonymized benchmarking against the industry? So not just
We are
internally.
actually, yeah, great question. So we're actively working on that right now, and we're working, we're partnering with some universities to co-author white papers and industry benchmark studies. At this point, we have certain industries pretty well benchmarked. But we're missing certain major categories. So our goal right now over the next year is, particularly this year, is to get as many industries represented in that. And so yes, we'll have an overall global benchmark that shows where companies stand and sort of what trends we're seeing across the board. And then do industry rankings within that, like within CRE or within financial services or hospitality or legal. What does that look like? Because what our hope is, what that does is help individuals and leaders understand, what does success actually look like in tangible ways, and what are the factors that helped either people or organizations achieve that. When you understand sort of the real sort of factors behind it, and you see it at such a large scale, data set, it gives better understanding of exactly what to do.
So that's one of the big things, isn't it? As a business leader, you tend to be looking quite inward, and you're never quite sure whether am I here? Am I here? Am I here? Where? And yes, you can read other companies' reports and listen to their analyst calls and things, but of course they're going to say everything's wonderful. But you just don't know when you benchmark. Oh, actually, I'm doing all right. Or, oh gosh, yeah. And then it helps them to go to the finance team and say, look, if we're going to spend some money, we need to spend it here.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're potentially falling behind against our peers. And I guess increasingly our peers is becoming a fairly diluted pool, because more and more companies can do more and more things with AI. People aren't quite so siloed as they used to be.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be, right now, you're an accountant firm, you're a legal firm, you're a finance firm, you're a real estate firm. The firms now are becoming increasingly having to become more and more fluid. So it just gives them that insight into areas they perhaps haven't had a chance to be exposed to before. So
yeah. And it also will lead to higher adoption across the board, because there's nothing more compelling than a leaderboard that says you're behind against your industry peers.
Yes. Yeah. What? And I assume you and Monica do at some point have you do sleep and you don't work 24 hours every day. If you did find a way to create more time, how would you, in a work sense? I mean, where would you invest your time at the moment?
The diagnostic. I think the power of that, from what we've already seen, has been absolutely mind blowing. The impact it has had, for companies to make better decisions, for leaders to feel greater certainty in their decisions, because everyone feels like they're navigating in this, great unknown, that it gives them a higher degree of certainty. And then for everyday employees to feel more empowered and not feel like they're irrelevant and replaceable. So the power of the diagnostic is significant, and there's just so much more we can do with it, around it. Whether it's the studies, the research reports, the white papers, collaborations with the university, turning that into. So one example that we're actively building towards in terms of new areas we're entering is how can this diagnostic help students in college? We university is a graduating young people that have terrible career prospects.
Yeah.
And there's a mismatch between what they learned in school and what the workplace now needs. In fact, a lot of campuses are saying you can't use AI because you're plagiarizing content or you're clicking a button to produce the paper you were supposed to write, which on one hand makes sense. Yes, you don't want kids to graduate with an easy button, but on the other hand, if they don't build those AI skills, you're graduating people that lack the very skill that every workplace expects now. So helping to identify exactly where students are and what they need to build and how does that influence academia and shifting curriculum and
Mm.
changing the nature of their programming
Uh-huh.
from not just focusing on hard skill development, but helping them, gain that live experience of co-creating with AI and strengthening the innately human skills. All of those things require a degree of influence to make that happen. And I see our diagnostic as being pretty powerful in that. So we haven't announced this publicly, but in the next few months, we will have established some pretty big partnerships with major leading universities. And use them as like the first example of transformation for what their academic curriculum and the programming is like for the students, and using our diagnostic as the core within that. And our hope is that that then inspires other universities to follow along.
Watch this space. It's been interesting the last month or so. I've read about is it Penn? They've heavily almost gone there, but they've heavily embraced AI and say AI should be part of every course.
Mm-hmm.
We accept it. It's going to be very important. The other universities and lots of university professors and agencies saying this is terrible, and like you say, it's cheapening the value of a degree, etc. But it's very pertinent to me now. My daughter started college, university in September, and she's doing philosophy and ethics, which I think is incredibly valuable today, probably more so than lots of technical topics. And my son's 16, and he'll be going off in a couple of years. And I said to my daughter, "What are they teaching you about AI then?"
Yeah.
So we had an AI and ethics class, it was like 2 hours in 1 week. But yeah, we just told just make sure you don't use AI, which is
Just
sort of
imagine if when imagine if students were told not to use the internet and that they had to go
well,
to the library
absolutely.
and look up books and read
I
through
know.
that to do any research versus using the internet, and it's the same idea.
Well, I'm finding now. I mean, I'm doing my PhD now in AI and ethics, and I'm absolutely using AI
Yeah,
to guide me towards the relevant papers. It allows me then to spend my time reading and absorbing and
more,
analyzing
yeah,
the papers, rather than spend my entire time walking around the library just randomly trying to find them, because
yeah,
they're happening and developing so quickly
yeah,
that actually using AI to source them for me, to find them for me, to say, well, I've thought about this, we've done
yeah,
this, and then my agent can go out and do that stuff,
yeah.
and leave me a bit like people at work, leave me to do hopefully the
Mhm.
value add thinking, analysis, and explanation of it, not spend my time finding stuff, which seems to be a very random way of doing things.
Exactly. Right. I mean, it's all how you look at it, because if you see it as a cheat code for not having to apply yourself and not leverage your own cognitive thinking, then um, you're just degrading yourself to the messy middle of average output. But
Yeah.
if you think of it as an amplifier that helps you focus on the right things, use your time wisely, and actually produce better output together, you're going to be in the 1%. So it all depends on when I think about one skill that really feels like a superpower, it's your metacognition skills, because the ability to think actually is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And using AI as a thought partner, but not a replacement for thinking.
100%. I mean, yeah, if you want to use the word cheat or whatever word you want to use. We've always been able to do that. It was
Yeah.
just sneaking notes to our exams or have an earbud in or whatever. If you want to, we've always been able to do it.
Yeah.
If you think Google's like that, but it feels like it just for me certainly in my limited experience of using it for my PhD, it just has allowed me to bring in 100 times more information than I would be able to find myself. Because sometimes you're looking for something and it's, unless you literally know exactly the name and the source and everything of it, you can never find it. Whereas AI, you sort of say, look, I'm exploring this topic, I'm exploring the relationships people have with AI and how they're developing, intimate relationships, whatever. What can you find? Oh, here are 25 papers you might want to look at. And then
Right.
each of those papers then has another source. It's not, all it's doing is helping me, it's just helping me find it. Yes, I can then ask it to do other things with it, which it can save them, it can store them, it can analyze them, it can do lots of other things. But ultimately, it just helps me be better informed for when I'm answering my essays or writing my dissertation. So it does feel like it's a tool that we should encourage and not, as I think many universities be fearful of, and therefore, well, no, we'll just ban it. No, you can't use it, which doesn't seem to be a very forward way of looking at things.
Yeah. Well, one simple framework that I personally find really valuable is before when I'm thinking about solving a certain problem, I don't avoid that. I avoid that like sort of instant gratification desire that we all have, right? Like, let me just ask AI that question, or not think through it. The pattern interrupt I introduce is sitting with defining and framing that problem first. Looking at it from different lenses. The first principles thinking that forces you to define it and really break down that problem in unique ways. That part, do it yourself. Force yourself to give yourself some time to actually define it that way and break down that problem into its component parts and think about how might each of those things be solved, and only then explore AI as the solution to any of those questions.
It was, yeah, no, and I'm not even smiling. So it was very relevant because I think I spent the first 3 months of my studies defining the question, which I thought, what a bloody hell is, let's get on with it. But no, it was literally doing that, writing it out, rewriting it, explaining it, come back to it, writing that, and then going to the my supervisor saying, well, here's what, no, what about this, what about that, and it's amazing how much better it feels now that I've got a properly defined question and understanding of what that is, and then almost creating your research proposition, then going out and sort of saying, well, for AI, what can I find to support this, to understand this, to detail it. But I think the exercise in doing it yourself in the beginning is, it's incredibly empowering. It just feels much more like it's yours, and it feels like very relevant. And I totally hear you. Just two more questions, if that's okay. One I've got you. So one of which would be, so on a personal note, what do you do to nurture and protect your own mental and physical well-being? You're working a very dramatic time. You're working a very challenging industry. But how do you look after yourself?
For me, my daily practices are very key to that. So my first 3 hours of my day are really protected and device free, if you will. So whether it's my morning walks or meditation, time with family, including with my 85-year-old dad, and having breakfast together, and all of those things. And then I have a daily writing practice that really grounds me. It's not necessarily work related writing. It's just a daily writing practice, and I write essays or just ponder on questions that I'm deeply curious about. And I find that writing helps me think or frame my thoughts and collect my thoughts. And but it's also helps me see things from different perspectives that I might not see while I'm deep in the work. And then outside of that, and just my hobbies like cooking and all of those things just ground me. So I'm very fortunate to have the environment and the family that is nurturing to your soul, not just your success.
Yeah, it's important to get that sort of harmony or balance, isn't it? No,
Mhm.
I totally agree. And then my final question, and you may have answered this in part already, but my final question would be, what is your vision for the future of flip work?
Um, my hope is that flip work unlocks the limitless potential in people. That while we are in the industry, all about AI and doing all of those things, but what our mission is really about is we believe in the limitless potential of every individual, and that flip work becomes the catalyst to making people exponentially capable, to making them feel valued and worthy, and to you know, unlock all of that human potential that previously was limited by constraints. And I see AI as the unlock for that. So I still believe that the human being is the greatest technology on planet Earth.
What a wonderful answer. Nothing about profit or money or IPOs, nothing, just about people, which I think is absolute credit to you and Monica. And I love talking to you when I talked to you both before. And yeah, I wasn't sure whether to whether to say this, and this is yeah, take this in the way it's meant. Like he says, he's pretty terrified now. But you talk to some people and you think, oh, yeah, that was interesting, that was good. I have I've never wanted to work for somebody more than I want to work for you, Monica. I'm not
Oh,
pitching for a job, but you just have it. And if my daughter or son said, "Oh, I've got this interview with Flipwork," and I think, just take it, no matter what it is, just take it. And
thank
for
you,
myself,
Andrew.
for them, just as I would, yeah, give anything just to work for you and in your space and in your mindset. So huge kudos to both of you for what you're
Thank
doing. I
you.
think it's fabulously important. So thank you for today. I know it wasn't necessarily what we planned, but it was wonderful. And yeah, thank you for being willing to sort of do this by yourself.
Yeah.
You've done the Monica and the business incredibly proud. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. It was a real pleasure. And, every conversation helps to bring more awareness and hopefully more hope to people about the future.